Two children are in front of shelves that are filled with toys such as trucks, buses, and building bricks. Figure 11. 1. Services are intangible, non-physical products, such as childcare, and they make up the majority of the U.S. GDP. Credit, DSC 1551 by Josh Ward/Flickr, CC by 20. Chapter outline. 11. 1. Classification of services. 11. 2. The service profit chain model and the service marketing triangle. 11. 3. The gap model of service quality. 11. 4. Ethical considerations in providing services. Services are acts a consumer is willing to pay for, and there are hundreds of different types. One such service is day care. According to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, 88% of two-parent families and 83% of single-parent families relied on non-parental care prior to the COVID-19 pandemic and spent approximately $42 million on early care and education. 1. Sarah Bullock, who has a background in early childhood education and 4 children of her own, owned a childcare business in Maryland for more than 10 years. When her husband was required to move to Tennessee for his job, she closed her business and started a new childcare business using a different business model. She changed it from a conventional daycare center to a drop-in center, allowing parents to bring in their children for short periods of time, anywhere from 1 to 7 hours, without requiring them to make a monthly commitment. That was the birth of Me-Time drop-in childcare. The concept has been so successful that Bullock has already begun plans to open a second location. 2. Learning outcomes. By the end of this section, you will be able to 1. Define services. 2. List the classification of services. 3. Describe the characteristics of services. Services defined. You may have heard that the United States economy is primarily considered a service economy. But do you know why this is? Figure 11. 2 provides the answer. It outlines the percentage each industry contributed to the gross domestic product, GDP, in 2020. 3. A quick refresher from your economics course. The GDP is a measure of the total monetary value of all finished goods and services generated within a country's borders during a specified period of time. Which industries are the largest contributor to the GDP? Service industries. Note that this figure does not include smaller industries such as utilities or mining and agriculture. When you total the service industries, they make up a whopping 67% of GDP versus only 10.8% for manufacturing. A bar graph shows industry percentages for service industries in 2020. The y-axis starts at 0 and goes up to 25 in increments of 5. The x-axis lists the service industries included. Percentages on the graph are finance, insurance, real estate 22%, professional business services 13%, government 13%, manufacturing 11%, education, healthcare, social services 8%, wholesale trade 6%, retail trade 6%, information 6%, arts, entertainment, lodging 3%, construction 4%, transportation, warehousing 3%, other services 2%. Figure 11. 2 percentages added by industry to the U.S. GDP in 2020, data source. BEA, U.S. Department of Commerce, attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax, under CC by 4. 0 license. In a nutshell, services are the non-physical, intangible economic activities. On the other hand, physical goods are the things we can touch or handle, commonly called tangibles. Do you realize that, as you read this textbook, you're participating in the services sector of the economy? That's because education is considered part of the service sector. The service sector also includes things like banking, medical treatment, transportation, insurance, and many more categories. Based on the fact that the majority of contributions to the GDP in the United States are services, and more than half of the country's workforce is employed in producing intangibles, it's critical to understand this important sector from a marketing perspective. Consider the challenges to marketers when selling services as opposed to products. A consumer can't touch or see the service before they purchase, so it's difficult to examine or evaluate benefits. Think about it. You can't take a service out for a test drive the way you might if you were buying a new car. Yet it's just as crucial for organizations that provide services to build brand awareness and brand loyalty. Classification of services. Services are classified as people-based services or equipment-based services, and within those classifications, there are subcategories, see Figure 11. 3. Services are divided into people-based and equipment-based services. People-based services includes unskilled labor, skilled labor, and professionals. Equipment-based services include automated services, unskilled operators, and skilled operators. Figure 11. 3 services classifications, attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax, under CC by 40 license. People-based services. People-based services are when people primarily deliver the service, rather than equipment or machinery, see Figure 11. 4 for examples. It's the individuals delivering the service and the knowledge and skills that they possess that add value and allow the service to be performed. People-based services can be broken down further into these subcategories. Services provided by unskilled labor. Parking lot attendants, babysitters, and janitors. Services provided by skilled labor. Plumbers, caterers, and hairstylists. Services provided by professionals. Doctors, attorneys, college professors, and accountants. Examples of the different types of jobs included in people-based services are parking lot attendant and babysitter, unskilled labor. Lumbers, hairstylists, and electricians, skilled labor, and accountants, physicians, and college professors, professionals. Figure 11. 4 people-based services attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax, under CC by 40 license. Equipment-based services. Equipment-based service firms utilize equipment, machinery, and other forms of technology to perform service tasks. See Figure 11. 5. Similar to people-based services, equipment-based services can be further broken down into subcategories. Automated services, car washes and parking meters. Equipment-based services, operated by relatively unskilled operators. Dry cleaning equipment, equipment-based services operated by skilled operators. X-ray machines and ultrasound equipment. Examples of the different types of jobs included in equipment-based services are self-service car wash and parking, meter automated services, dry cleaning equipment and taxi driver unskilled operators, and pilot and ultrasound technician skilled operators. Figure 11. 5 equipment-based services attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax, under CC by 40 license. There is another way to categorize services. According to well-known author and Professor Christopher Lovelock, 1940-2008, he proposed 4 broad categories of services: people processing, services toward people's bodies; possession processing, services toward possessions; mental stimulus processing, services toward people's mind; information processing, services toward intangible assets. 4. In Figure 11. 6. The categories are defined on a 2-dimensional matrix, wherein one of the dimensions is the direct recipient of the service and the other is the nature of the service act. 5. Lovelock's categories of services are divided into tangible and intangible actions. Tangible actions are further divided into people processing, or physical services such as haircut and physical therapy, and possession processing, or object services such as recycling and car service, such as oil change. Intangible actions are divided into mental stimulus processing, or mental services such as education and counseling, and information processing, or asset services such as banking and legal counseling. Figure 11. 6 Lovelock's categories of service attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax, under CC by 40 license. Link to learning. Lovelock, if you plan to continue toward a marketing degree, you'll want to familiarize yourself with Christopher Lovelock's work. You can run a search on Amazon, comb for his books, or a search in your browser for articles and more information. Start by reading his Wikipedia page to learn about his academic background and achievements. Let's look at each of these categories in more depth. The first 2 categories, people processing and possession processing, involve tangible actions directed toward a person's physical body or property, whereas mental stimulus processing and information processing involve intangible actions directed toward a person's mind or information. We'll expand on this in the following sections: people processing, In people processing services, the customer is a direct recipient of the service, and the production and consumption of the service are simultaneous. Consider examples of services where you must be present in the service facility in order to interact with the service provider and receive the service, such as barbershops or hair salons, physical therapists' offices, or restaurants. Possession processing. The difference between people processing and possession processing is that the service is directed toward the customer's physical possessions. In other words, production and consumption are separate. Your only involvement is dropping off the item that requires service or repair and explaining the problem. For example, once you have taken your car in for an oil change, you do not need to be physically at the location for the oil change to occur. Similarly, once you've dropped your clothes off at the dry cleaner, you don't need to be physically present when the cleaning process is performed. These services are tangible because the direct recipient is one of your possessions rather than you as a person. Mental stimulus processing. In its simplest explanation, mental stimulus processing is when the services interact with your mind rather than your body. Time and mental effort are required from the customer to receive this type of service. What you're doing right now, reading this textbook, is a prime example of mental stimulus processing. Other examples include psychotherapy or counseling services. The key here is that services rendered in this category are intangible. Information processing. Information processing is the most intangible form of service, although it can be transformed into a tangible service output like reports, books, letters, DVDs, etc. Some examples of information processing services are things like meeting with your financial advisor regarding investment advice, legal services, and banking. 6. Link to learning. Service industry stats and a changing industry. If you'd like more insight into service industries, check out the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics website. It categorizes industries and provides interesting statistics on employment. Companies are launching new services every day. Think about it. Services like Uber didn't exist 20 years ago. As a marketer, understanding services and their business models is critical. Start here and read about on-demand service companies and how services and apps are changing the industry. And also check out this article about the top 15 service businesses for 2022. Characteristics of services. As outlined in Figure 11.2, service industries contribute the major percentage of the U.S. GDP. It's important to understand that this shift from the manufacturing sector to the service sector isn't limited to the United States. Increasingly, the world economy is being characterized as a service economy. Looking at economic history, we can see a natural evolution in developing countries from the agricultural industry to the service sector as the mainstay of the economy. That's why it's critical for marketers to understand the characteristics of services. As we pointed out above, some services come from physical products, such as getting a haircut or having your income tax return prepared by a professional. But other services are completely intangible. When you rent a hotel room, travel on an airplane, visit your doctor, attend a professional sporting event, or get advice from a lawyer or an accountant, you're buying a service, so a marketer needs to consider the characteristics of services in order to get the right marketing messages to the right target market. See Figure 11. 7. The characteristics of services are intangibility, inseparability, variability, and perishability. Figure 11. 7 characteristics of services, attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax, under CC by 40 license. Service intangibility. By their very nature, services are intangible. This means they can't be seen, tasted, felt, smelled, or heard before they are purchased. Consider the last time you purchased automobile insurance for your car. Other than the physical policy, the company sends you the only tangible asset. What you've paid for is completely intangible. It's the company's promise to pay claims against the policy. Intangible services have a number of implications in marketing. The very fact that there's nothing to touch, hear, smell, and so on typically increases the level of uncertainty that a consumer faces when choosing between services offered by your organization or those of competitors. Intangible services can seldom be tried out, inspected, or even given a test drive by a customer. Customers have to rely on the word of the marketers in order to assess what they're actually going to get in return for what they've paid. In effect, they are buying a promise. Savvy marketers reduce this uncertainty by creating physical evidence that allows the consumer to picture the service before it is purchased. For example, a hair salon may have imaging software that predicts how you would look with different hairstyles or colors. Companies like Zenni and iBuyDirect have a virtual mirror that allows you to try on eyeglasses and see how the selected frames look on your face before you purchase. 7. Service inseparability. The order of production and consumption between a physical product and a service differs. Think about a box of Girl Scout cookies, a physical good or product. The cookies were produced, stored, sold, and finally consumed. That's not the way it works with services. Like goods, services are sold, but they are produced and consumed simultaneously. They can't be separated from the service providers, whether they are people or equipment. 8. For example, try to get money out of your bank on a weekend or evening without an ATM, or try to get a haircut without the physical presence of your stylist. That's the concept of service inseparability. You can't separate the delivery of the service from the presence of the customer. In other words, the service provider is physically connected to the service and is evaluated on the basis of their communication skills, language, demeanor, personal hygiene, and clothing. The impact to the marketer in these services, in which the service provider and customer must both be present, is how service providers, sometimes called frontline employees, conduct themselves in the presence of the customer because it may determine the likelihood of repeat business. 9. There are also other marketing implications with this concept, such as customer cooperation and participation, not to mention the influence from other customers who may be present. Service variability. Have you ever gone to a restaurant and had stellar customer service? You were seated promptly by a cheerful hostess. The busser filled up your water glass and refilled it several times during the evening. The wait staff was attentive, but not to the point of being annoying, and your dirty dishes were cleared promptly. But perhaps the next time you visit the same restaurant, your experience isn't quite as amazing. The hostess isn't as cheerful, and it takes her several minutes to seat you. It takes a while for someone to refill your water glass. The waitstaff isn't nearly as attentive as they were during your first visit. What went wrong? Perhaps what you've experienced is what's known as service variability. The quality of the service depends on who provides it, when it is provided, and how it is provided. For example, Delta Air Lines prides itself on improving people's lives and exceeding customer expectations. 10. However, because services are provided by humans who have human experiences where they may not be feeling well or they are having a bad day, the service may be variable between employees. One Delta employee may be cheerful and efficient, while another lags due to their energy and state of mind. This is a challenge to marketers because products generally have little variability. Each unit is built to certain specifications. For example, if you buy an Apple iPad Pro and your classmate purchases the same model, it's likely that the two iPads will be virtually identical. The case color may be different, but otherwise they are the same. That's not the case with a service, where there will undoubtedly be variations in the quality of the service depending on who offers the service, when it is offered, and at which location. Service-based companies need to rely on standardizing processes to the extent possible, frequent audits, customer surveys, and most importantly, customer feedback. Service perishability. Unlike most goods, services can't be produced and stored for later use or sale. Services are, in effect, performances by the service provider. That's the concept of service perishability. Did you miss tonight's concert because of traffic? Too bad, because a ticket for tonight's concert can't be used for tomorrow night's performance. Hotel rooms that are not occupied, airline seats that are not purchased, and unused gym memberships cannot be reclaimed. 11. Because these items can't be stored for later use, they are considered a perishable service. This is particularly important for marketers because the perishability factor and the fluctuating demand poses special problems in capacity planning, scheduling, product planning, and pricing. 12. One way that marketers deal with this problem is by manipulating demand. Consider how many restaurants offer happy hours with discounted food and drinks during the late afternoon or early evening. Restaurants do this because this time is typically the period where there is a lull before the start of the dinner rush. Careers in marketing. Salaries. You might be curious about the salaries of marketing jobs. There are numerous online resources that provide guides, but the best step to take is to check out popular sites like Monster, Indeed, and LinkedIn to view current job positions. They may not all include the salary, but most will include salary ranges. The following is a list of a few of resources to get you started. Monster, high-paying marketing jobs. Acadium, how much do marketers make? Marketing job salaries in 2022. All business schools, marketing manager salaries and job outlook. Indeed, entry-level marketing salary in United States. Knowledge check. It's time to check your knowledge on the concepts presented in this section. Refer to the answer key at the end of the book for feedback. One, you purchased an airline ticket to go on vacation, but on the way to the airport, you get a flat tire and miss your flight. Which characteristic of service does this example illustrate? Service variability, service inseparability, service perishability, service intangibility. 2, you go to a new hairstylist, and he suggests that you add highlights to your hair, cut off a few inches, and add some layers. You're hesitant to do so because you can't imagine what you're going to look like with your new hairstyle. What characteristic of service does this example illustrate? Service intangibility, service variability, service perishability, service inseparability. 3, you go to the spa to get a massage, but your regular massage therapist is off for the day. The massage therapist to whom you're assigned does an adequate job, but they don't have the same technique as your regular massage therapist. What characteristic of service does this example illustrate? Service inseparability, service perishability, service variability, service intangibility. 4, you go to your certified public accountant, CPA, to have your tax return prepared and filed for the year. How would this service be characterized in terms of classifications of services? People-based services, unskilled labor. Equipment-based services, unskilled operator. People-based services, professionals. Equipment-based services, skilled operator. 5, you're headed to lunch with friends at a downtown restaurant. Because there is no restaurant parking lot, you have to park on the street and feed the parking meter or risk getting a parking ticket. How would the service provided to you by the parking meter be classified? Equipment-based services, unskilled operator. People-based services, professionals. People-based services, skilled labor. Equipment-based services, automated service. Learning outcomes. By the end of this section, you will be able to 1. Define and explain the purpose of the service profit chain model. 2. Describe the steps in the service profit chain model. 3. Explain the services marketing triangle. Definition and purpose of the service profit chain model. Just like goods-producing businesses, service firms use marketing to position themselves in selected markets. These businesses position themselves in the market through marketing mix activities, i.e., product, price, place, and promotion. However, because of the inherent differences between services and tangible products, different marketing approaches may be required. Consider a product like a laptop or smartphone. The products are fairly standardized, so they can be produced and shipped to retailers and then sit on shelves in the store until purchased by a consumer. However, if you're a service business, it takes the interaction of the frontline employee and the customer to literally create the service. The interaction between the employee and customer is important in creating the value of that service. The service profit chain model, created by a group of Harvard researchers in the 1990s, establishes relationships between profitability, employee satisfaction, loyalty, and productivity. The concept is reasonably simple. Happy workers make happy customers who keep coming back and tell their friends. The model itself is a little more complicated and states the following. Internal service quality, the support received by frontline employees from the rest of the organization, leads to employee satisfaction. Employee satisfaction results in employee loyalty, productivity, and the willingness to go that extra mile for the customer, which creates value. Value contributes to customer satisfaction, resulting in customer loyalty. Customer loyalty translates to profitability and growth for the organization. Perhaps the most critical aspect of this model is that all of these points linked together are equally important and depend on one another. There are no shortcuts to increasing profitability. Didn't quite follow that? Refer to Figure 11, 8 for a visual depiction. The service profit chain model shows the links between profitability, employee satisfaction, loyalty, and productivity. Increased profitability and growth depend on customer loyalty, which depends on customer satisfaction, which depends on value, which depends on employee retention and productivity, which depends on employee satisfaction, which depends on internal service quality. Figure 11. 8. The service profit chain model, attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax, under CC BY 40 license. Steps in the service profit chain model. The service profit chain model connects the interworkings and relationships between the different parts of a business. It impacts employee satisfaction and retention, customer satisfaction, customer loyalty, and profitability. Let's take a closer look. Internal service quality. Internal service quality refers to the perceived satisfaction frontline employees experience when they are supported by effective policies and service from the organization. If you've ever worked in a restaurant, you'll be familiar with the terms back of house and front of house. Front of house employees are guest-facing, roles like hosts, hostesses, and servers, those who intentionally interact with the customer. Back of house employees like bussers, dishwashers, and cooks typically don't have direct interaction with the customer. Rather, it's their work that supports the front of house employees. Even if your server is friendly, attentive, and efficient, if your silverware is dirty or your steak isn't prepared as ordered, the overall dining experience is going to be less than optimal. In addition to the customer dissatisfaction, server employee satisfaction will also suffer due to the lack of support from the back-of-house staff. Consider another example. Your flight was delayed, and it took forever to get your luggage and rental car. By the time you get to your hotel, you're tired and cranky, and you just want to check in and get some rest. The front desk clerk is cordial and efficient. However, your room isn't available because the housekeeping staff hasn't cleaned the room yet. Who gets the brunt of your anger? Imagine the lack of job satisfaction on the part of the front desk clerk who's tried to do everything right and was thwarted by the lack of support from housekeeping. One of the ways that this problem can be alleviated within an organization is to create an employee feedback loop in which frontline employees can communicate problems that hurt productivity, satisfaction, and loyalty. The feedback loop is a critical element because, as consultant Sidney Yoshida reports in his study, The Iceberg of Ignorance, 4% of an organization's frontline problems are known by top management, 9% are known by middle management, 74% are known by supervisors, and 100% are known by employees. 13. Employee satisfaction. Employee satisfaction is the level of happiness or contentment employees have with their jobs and work environment. It's often the direct result of company policies and support services that empower employees to deliver quality products and services. If employees are satisfied with the company's policies, it's easier to facilitate a happy attitude that helps consumers have pleasurable experiences with the organization. For several years, Zappos has made Fortune's list of 100 best companies to work for. The late CEO Tony H.C. focused so much on the happiness of his team and customers that he wrote a series of books about it, including Delivering Happiness, A Path to Profits, Passion, and Purpose. He recognized that the only person-to-person contact a customer would have with an online retailer would be with customer service personnel, so he encouraged his employees to go above and beyond for the customer. 14. Employee retention and productivity. Employee turnover is one of the most frustrating and recurring problems that organizations face. Turnover is costly regardless of whether it's involuntary, such as termination due to poor performance, or voluntary, such as employee-decided resignation or retirement. The conservative estimate from the Society of Human Resource Management, SHRM, is that it costs 6 to 9 months of an employee's annual salary to replace that person. 15. That's why employee retention, keeping employees motivated so that they choose to remain with the company, is so critical. The good news is that employee satisfaction is inversely related to employee turnover. In other words, an increase in employee satisfaction brings about a decrease in employee turnover. Perhaps even more importantly, studies have shown that low turnover leads to an increase in organizational productivity, the efficiency and output of employees, and performance. For example, some time ago, Taco Bell discovered that its restaurants with high employee retention had twice as many sales as other stores, and had 55% higher profits than restaurants with high turnover. In response to these findings, the company enhanced its internal service quality by giving employees more latitude for on-the-job decision-making. 16. Link to learning. The Great Resignation. You may be aware of the Great Resignation, in which employees are leaving their jobs in large numbers. Because of the cost to hire, train, and retain employees, employee retention is a major concern for organizations. There are many reasons why this is happening, and there are ways companies can improve to help them retain their employees. Read these articles from the Pew Research Center, Forbes, and Mashable about this shift in employee thinking. There are corporate strategies companies can take to counteract this resignation trend. Learn about these strategies from LinkedIn and Family Business. External service value proposition. Customer value is also known as external value proposition. It's the promise of value that a customer expects a business to deliver. 17. Think about your last haircut. Why did you choose to get your haircut at that particular salon versus a competitor? Certainly, the quality of the haircut itself was important, but the customer value you experienced from your stylist played a role. What else factored into your experience? How about the other behind-the-scenes employees who made it easy for you to book an appointment or who checked you in efficiently? The person who kept the salon clean and attractive, and the person who made it easy for you to pay and perhaps book another appointment when you were leaving. That's why employees, both frontline and behind the scenes, play a major role in ensuring customer value. Satisfied, motivated employees generally, and genuinely, care about the company and the services it provides and can convey this to consumers in an honest, positive manner. 18. Customer satisfaction. The next two steps, customer satisfaction and customer loyalty, in the service profit chain model are related and directly linked. A dissatisfied customer will not be loyal and will likely not do business with the company in the future. Conversely, customer loyalty, the ongoing positive relationship between a customer and business, is a result of customer satisfaction, or the measure of how happy customers are with the company's products, services, and capabilities. The greater the satisfaction from a customer, the more likely they will return. Additionally, satisfied customers often serve as unofficial ambassadors of the company and will spread the word about their positive experience. 19. Customer loyalty. The definition of customer loyalty is when a person goes to the same company for subsequent services, even if that service is more expensive than those of the competitor. The customer makes a deliberate choice to do repeat business with a company with which they have had positive experiences, resulting in growth and higher profits for the company. 20. Profit and growth. In terms of the service profit chain model, profit isn't the goal, it's the result. The formula is really quite simple. Happy employees result in happy customers. Happy customers mean repeat business and spreading the word about your organization. Repeat and new business mean profit and growth for the organization. The key is to keep employees happy because it leads to company profits. Link to learning. Putting the service profit chain to work. Learn from this Harvard Business Review article about the connectivity of the service profit chain links. Interested in understanding how the model works in other industries? Read this hospitality news and business article about why the service profit chain is important in the hospitality industry. Marketing in practice. Ritz-Carlton. A photo of the corner of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. Figure 11. 9. The Ritz-Carlton Hotel directly impacts its service profit model by empowering its employees to provide a positive experience for customers. Credit. Can by Fred Romero / Flickr, CC by 2. 0. Employee empowerment is one of those buzzwords that has become popular over the last few decades. It's defined as the ways in which an organization provides its employees with some autonomy and freedom to make decisions and have some control in their day-to-day activities. For example, a supermarket may empower its cashiers to match competitors' ads without approval from a manager for up to a certain dollar amount. If you were the owner of a business, how much latitude would you give your employees in helping customers? A lot, a little, none. The Ritz-Carlton, considered a gold standard for hospitality, see Figure 11. 9. Allows its employees to spend up to $2,000 to solve customer problems without manager approval. 21. You might be shaking your head right now, trying to understand this. $2,000 seems like a lot of money to be left to the discretion of employees, doesn't it? But you may not realize that the average Ritz-Carlton customer will spend approximately $250,000 with the hotel chain over their lifetime. When you consider that the customer lifetime value, CLV, of a Ritz-Carlton guest is $250,000, that $2,000 doesn't seem hard to believe, does it? 22. For more information about Ritz-Carlton and its commitment to customer service, watch this brief video with Ritz-Carlton founder Horst Schulze and Yahoo Finance, where he discusses the importance of and value in caring for customers. The Service Marketing Triangle. The Service Marketing Triangle is a visual image of a model that speaks to the importance of people in a company's ability to keep its service promises. See Figure 11. 10. It might help to imagine the Service Marketing Triangle as a three-legged stool. Take out one of the legs, and the stool won't stand for long. That's the premise and the importance of the Service Marketing Triangle. All three aspects must be achieved or exceeded for the customer to be delighted. The Services Marketing Triangle is divided into 4 equal-sized triangles. In the center is the Title Services Marketing Triangle. The top triangle is the company, external marketing. The bottom right is customers' interactive marketing. The bottom left is employees' internal marketing. Figure 11. 10. The Services Marketing Triangle Attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax, under CC by 40 license. External Service Marketing, Making Promises. External service marketing refers to the promotion of an organization's services in an external environment, where the company promotes its services to customers through various traditional techniques like pricing, advertising, direct marketing, public relations, and personal selling. These marketing techniques are intended to achieve multiple aims, such as creating and increasing awareness, setting price expectations, and setting expectations for the level of service to be delivered. 23. Internal Service Marketing, Enabling Promises. In a service business, employees are seen as internal customers. As you've seen from the discussion on the service profit chain model, if a company wants to better serve its customers, it has to start with satisfying its employees so that they're committed to delivering the best service possible to external customers. That's the essence of internal service marketing. Internal service marketing is the process of motivating employees to deliver customer value and ensure customer satisfaction by acting as a team. While that is obviously true for frontline employees who interact with the customer, it is equally applied to all employees, including those behind-the-scenes employees who support the frontline employees. In other words, all employees of an organization need to be empowered so they can deliver great customer service. Key components of internal service marketing include motivating employees, training them in customer satisfaction techniques, ongoing communication of company goals and objectives, and, of course, good pay and working conditions. 24. Interactive Service Marketing, Keeping Promises. Interactive service marketing is the communication between the service provider and the customer, called a service encounter. The service encounter is where external marketing promises are either upheld, exceeded, or broken by employees. Interactive service marketing is critical because it sets short-term and long-term customer satisfaction. In its simplest terms, when a customer is happy in the short term, they are more likely to be happy over the long term. 25. Let's review the elements of the service marketing triangle with an example of a fine dining restaurant in a major metropolitan area. The 3 parties involved in the service marketing triangle are the owner of the restaurant employees, and the diners. As part of internal marketing, the owner may offer training to servers about the pairing of certain dishes on the menu with wines offered by the restaurant, or hold a huddle at the beginning of each shift to train servers about daily specials and wine pairings. As part of external marketing, diners might be lured to the restaurant through the restaurant's Facebook page, which touts its extensive list of wines and the fact that servers are experienced in recommending wines to enhance the flavor of the menu items. Finally, as part of interactive marketing, servers are encouraged to give diners full descriptions of all menu items and daily specials, and recommend which wines to pair with their food choices, leading to a more satisfying dining experience. 26. Link to learning. Service Marketing Triangle. Check out this brief video about the Service Marketing Triangle model to gain a better understanding. Knowledge check. It's time to check your knowledge on the concepts presented in this section. Refer to the answer key at the end of the book for feedback. 1. According to the service profit chain model, what drives organizational profitability and growth? Internal service quality, employee satisfaction, customer loyalty, value. 2. The extent to which employees are happy or content with their work environment is known as which of the following in the service profit chain model? Employee satisfaction, internal service quality, external value proposition, customer loyalty. 3. Which two steps in the service profit chain model are related and directly linked? Internal service quality and value, value and customer satisfaction and customer loyalty, internal service quality, and increased productivity and growth. 4. In the service marketing triangle occurs when employees and customers associate and communicate. Internal marketing, external marketing, interactive marketing, customer satisfaction. 5. In the service profit chain model, there is an relationship between employee satisfaction and employee turnover. Behavioral, equivalent, parallel, inverse. Learning outcomes. By the end of this section, you will be able to 1. Describe the gap model of service quality. 2. List and describe the dimensions of service quality. Dimensions of service quality. While we're still on the subject of customer satisfaction, let's take a look at still another model that aids marketers in better understanding customer satisfaction. The gap model of service quality, sometimes also known as the customer service gap model or the 5-gap model, first proposed in 1985. The importance of this model is that it demonstrates that customer satisfaction is essentially a function of perception. In other words, if the service provided meets or exceeds customers' expectations, they will be satisfied. If not, they will be dissatisfied, likely as a result of one of the customer service gaps presented below. 27. According to the model, see Figure 11. 11. There are 5 major gaps or potential inconsistencies organizations encounter in seeking to meet customers' expectations of the customer experience. 28. The 5 gaps included in the gap model of service quality are knowledge gap, policy gap, delivery gap, communication gap, and customer gap. The knowledge gap is the difference between what the customer expects and what management thinks the customer expects. The policy gap is the difference between management's understanding of customer needs and service delivery policies and employee standards. The delivery gap is the difference between experience specification and actual results. The communication gap is the difference between delivery of the customer experience and what was communicated to the customer. The customer gap is the difference between customer expectations and the customer perception of the experience. Figure 11. 11 gap model of service quality, attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax, under CC by 40 license. The gaps are: Gap 1 knowledge gap, the difference between customer expectations and what managers think they expect. Gap 2 policy gap, the difference between management's understanding of the customer's needs and how they translate that understanding into service delivery policies and standards for employees. Gap 3 delivery gap, the difference between the experience specification and the actual results of the service. Gap 4 communication gap, the difference between the delivery of the customer experience and what is communicated to the customer. Gap 5 customer gap, the difference between the customer's expectations of the service or experience and their perception of the experience. Let's look at each one of these gaps in a little more detail. Gap 1. The knowledge gap. The knowledge gap is the difference between what customers expect and what the company thinks they expect. 29. The bottom line here is that the company doesn't know exactly what customers want. This could be due to a variety of factors: lack of communication between frontline employees and management, inadequate market research, or simply a failure to listen to customer feedback, including complaints. For example, a hotel manager may think that guests want a hot breakfast instead of a continental breakfast. But the reality is that guests are more concerned with the cleanliness of their rooms or the speed of the internet service at the hotel than they are with breakfast. Gap 2, the policy gap. The policy gap reflects the difference between management's perception of the customer's needs and the translation of that understanding into its service delivery policies and standards. Typically, management has an accurate understanding of what the customer wants, but performance standards haven't been established that ensure the appropriate employee behaviors are displayed. 30. Using the hotel example again, assume that a number of customers have complained that the phone rings innumerable times before it is answered. Management wants to address this issue, so it establishes a policy that phones must be answered quickly. What's your interpretation of the word quickly? 2 rings, 4 rings, 6 rings? Specificity here is the key. Gap 3, the delivery gap. The delivery gap is the difference between service standards and policies and the actual delivery of the service. In this situation, frontline service workers know what to do to delight the customer. They simply aren't doing it. For instance, management may have established a policy that the front desk phones get answered on or before the second ring, but the front desk employees are allowing phones to ring much longer before answering. This gap may arise due to improper training, lack of capability on the part of employees, unwillingness to meet the established service standards, or staff shortages. Southwest Airlines is a great example of this. According to its website, the mission of the company is dedication to the highest quality of customer service delivered with a sense of warmth, friendliness, individual pride, and company spirit. 31. The company doesn't overhype its service, so there is no delivery gap. The difference between the experience specification and the actual delivery of its service. This is demonstrated by the fact that, compared to other airlines, Southwest has the greatest customer service rating, earning a 33.9% excellence rating. 32. Gap 4. The communication gap. If marketers are doing an effective job in terms of their promotion efforts, the customer is likely to be highly influenced by that promotion. The problem now becomes, the company had better deliver. The communication gap is the difference between the delivery of the service and what is communicated to the customer. In other words, what did the company promise versus what did it deliver? For example, if your coffee shop asserts in its advertising and on its menu that its food is gluten-free, and it isn't, customer expectations won't be met. Failure to deliver on a promise hurts the company's credibility. Former U.S. President Donald Trump wrote, "A brand is 2 words, the promise you telegraph and the experience you deliver." 33. Gap 5, the customer gap. The customer gap is the difference between the customer's expectations of the service or experience and their perception of the experience itself. In an ideal world, the customer's expectations would be nearly identical to their perception. But customer perception is totally subjective and has been shaped by word of mouth, their personal needs, and their own past experiences. The problem here is that each individual perceives their world through their own eyes, and everyone perceives reality differently. In other words, while reality is a fixed factor, perception of reality is a variable. Link to learning. Understanding the gap model. Watch this video and learn more about quality of service and the gap model from Jochen Wirtz, a well-known marketing author. Also check out this article from Indeed about the gap model of service quality with examples. The RATER model. In their book Delivering Quality Service, researchers Valerie Zythamel, A. Parasaraman, and Leonard Berry identified 5 dimensions of service that customers use when evaluating service quality. Their research pointed to the fact that these 5 dimensions result in service excellence and lead to higher customer loyalty. This model is sometimes known as the RATER framework of service quality. 34 refer to Figure 11. 12 for a visual representation of the RATER framework. The dimensions of service quality in the RATER framework of service quality are reliability, assurance, tangibles, empathy, and responsiveness. Figure 11. 12. The RATER framework of service quality, attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax, under CC by 40 license. Let's explore each of these dimensions. Represented by the acronym RATER, in some detail. Reliability. R for reliability depicts the organization's capability to provide accurate, dependable, and on-time service. 35. Consistency is critical. Companies that provide on-time, error-free service to customers tend to have repeat customers. Research has shown that service reliability is 3 times more important to customers than the latest equipment or flashy uniforms. 36. The bottom line when it comes to service reliability and quality is, do you deliver as promised? Assurance. For assurance is the degree to which the organization inspires trust in its customers. For example, when you take your sick pet to a veterinarian or have your income tax return prepared, or any other service. For that matter, you expect the service provider to be an expert in the service they're delivering. Research has shown that communicating this expertise to customers is important. If customers aren't aware of that expertise, they often have less confidence in that provider, which can lead to a low assessment of that provider's service. 37. Does your organization inspire confidence in its service providers? Whether you're a hairstylist, a physical therapist, a tattoo artist, or any number of other service professions, it's important to communicate your expertise before you do the work. For example, a plumber's business card may contain the words licensed, bonded, and insured. Hairstylists generally display their state licenses in their workspace. Doctors often have framed diplomas in the office from medical school, residencies, and fellowships. These are all ways in which these service providers communicate their competencies. Communicating these competencies to customers helps shape expectations and influence assessments in advance of the service. 38. Tangibles. When we talk about tangibles in the RATER model, we're focusing on factors such as the physical appearance of both the physical facility and employees. Does your organization present itself professionally? This is one of the factors in the RATER metric that is hard to define because it takes into account customers' perceptions, and different customers may respond in different, subjective ways to the environment created. Let's imagine that you're taking that special someone out for a romantic or special occasion dinner at a fine dining restaurant. What tangibles contribute to that experience? You may expect a knowledgeable, uniformed staff, soft lighting and background music, an appealing menu, and clean restrooms. All of these tangibles will factor into your overall perception of the quality of service you receive. Another good example of tangibles in terms of the RATER model is the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, where tangibles include Warhol prints on the wall, Chihuly sculptures hanging from the ceiling, and a professionally attired staff that projects a sense of caring and expertise. There are 500 original pieces of art from 70 U.S. artists on display throughout the hospital. 39. Customer perception isn't the only challenge marketers face in terms of tangibles. It's also the fact that, done right, customers may not even notice and point out the tangibles unless their feedback is negative. That's why listening and acting on customer complaints is critical in improving an organization's tangibles and promoting a strong customer service image. 40. Empathy. Empathy in terms of the RATER model means focusing on customers attentively to ensure that they receive caring and distinguished service. It isn't enough to be efficient and thorough in delivering service to customers. It's also about service providers connecting with customers during delivery of the service and making them feel valued. You may have heard the old saying that it's not what was said, it's how it was said. The same is true of providing service. For example, let's go back to the example of that special dinner in the fine dining restaurant. Imagine that you accidentally spill your beverage all over the table. A busser is called to clean the spill, change the tablecloth, and provide you with new silverware and napkins. That busser may have taken care of those tasks effectively and efficiently, but didn't make eye contact, smile, or ask you if you needed anything else. In this hypothetical situation, the busser's tasks were performed fully, but you didn't feel that they cared about your predicament. 41. Responsiveness. A service staff's desire to treat customers with respect and provide satisfactory and quick service speaks to their responsiveness. This dimension focuses on promptness and willingness. Accordingly, the organization has to ensure that customers are getting quick service, without delay, and with an effort that makes customers believe the company genuinely wants to help them. 42. Responsiveness is directly in line with the amount of time that customers wait for an answer or a solution. Have you ever called an organization with a service question and had to play 20 questions with the company's automated phone system? You know the drill: press 1 for option A, press 2 for option B, press 3 for option C, etc. The chances are that your patience evaporated after about the fourth telephone prompt, and you were left screaming "representative" into your phone. That's a classic example of a company that needs to focus on its responsiveness if it wants to generate customer loyalty. Link to learning: applying the RATER model to real-world companies. Check out this video about Disney guest service and the RATER model. Also look at this article that applies the RATER model to Amazon, Thermomix, Apple, and a bank. Knowledge check. It's time to check your knowledge on the concepts presented in this section. Refer to the answer key at the end of the book for feedback. 1. Which gap in the gap model of service quality represents the difference between what customers expect and what the company thinks they expect? Communication gap, customer gap, knowledge gap, policy gap. 2. Management in a hotel perceives that the biggest problem in customer service is the length of time that it takes to check in guests. So they have established a policy that check-in will take no more than 5 minutes. Which gap in the gap model of service quality does this action illustrate? Policy gap, delivery gap, communication gap, customer gap. 3. In the gap model of service quality, which dimension is the difference between the customer's expectation of the service and their perception of the experience? Communication gap, delivery gap, customer gap, knowledge gap. 4. The acronym RATER in the RATER framework of service quality stands for which dimensions of service quality that result in service excellence and lead to higher customer loyalty? Responsibility, accuracy, tangibles, empathy, and responsiveness. Risk, acceptance, transparency, earnings, and revenue. Reliability, assurance, tangibles, empathy, and responsiveness. Revenue, appreciation, trust, efficiency, and responsibility. 5. Which dimension in the RATER model represents the physical facilities, employees, appearance, equipment, machinery, and information systems? Assurance, responsiveness, transparency, tangibles, learning outcomes. By the end of this section, you will be able to 1. Describe the ethical considerations in providing services to customers. 2. Discuss how ethics contribute to customer satisfaction. How do ethics contribute to customer satisfaction? In 2019, AT&T ran a series of TV commercials featuring a variety of professionals who don't quite make the grade. These commercials included a surgeon who has almost been reinstated and a tax professional who will get your taxes into an okay place when his audit is over. The catchphrase is each of these commercials was "just okay is not okay." The same is true of an organization's ethical culture. Do you want your ethical culture to be just okay? In this chapter, we've been talking about the importance of building customer loyalty, which drives profitability and growth. But what about the link between ethics and customer loyalty? Ethics are becoming central to consumers, employees, and a company's reputation, and hence its ability to gain customer loyalty. New research from Mintel, a market intelligence agency, reveals that over half of U.S. consumers stop buying from companies they perceive to be unethical. 43 talk about a wake-up call: service excellence through ethics. Obviously, ethics matter. But how do you ensure that those ethics are instilled and demonstrated by your employees, particularly those frontline employees who interact directly with the customer? The National Ethics Association, NEA, has 2 suggestions. First, within your ethics program, make customer service a core component. Second, promote values and ethics and include them within the rules for your frontline workers along with the consequences if they aren't followed. 44. According to the NEA, steps can include the following: identifying customer service behaviors that are unethical, like lying to customers or failing to display sensitivity to customers with problems. Training employees on an ongoing basis in desired behaviors. Ensuring customers know that promises aren't empty words, but rather a commitment to their satisfaction. Monitoring interactions between frontline employees and customers to spot ethical gaps, especially in times of high stress and work volume. Leading by example. It's not enough to just talk the talk when it comes to ethical behavior within the organization. Managers also need to walk the talk. It's important to walk the talk of ethical behavior as a model for employees when dealing with customers' complaints and problems. 45. Royal Caribbean Group is another company that takes its ethical behavior seriously. It has a code of business conduct and ethics decree that connects its core values, fairness, integrity, honesty, and trustworthiness, to all of its actions. Chairman and CEO Richard Fain reaffirms its commitment to integrity and an ethical culture and states, simply complying with the law is not enough. We need to be ABC, above and beyond compliance. 46. Beyond just words, however, the company has established an ethics hotline managed by the network, a leading third-party hotline provider. Through the use of this ethics hotline, employees can anonymously report their concerns about ethics violations 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, by either telephone or the internet. 47. Link to learning. Royal Caribbean. Read more about Royal Caribbean's Code of Business Conduct and Ethics on its website. Also, read this article on the potential ethical issues specific to service marketing. Companies with a conscience. NASCO Gulf. A worker sits at a desk in front of multiple computer monitors and a phone. Figure 11. 13. Ethics are becoming increasingly more important to customers and the services they use, so companies like NASCO Gulf, an insurance company, are focusing more on trust as a way to develop long-term loyalty. Credit WOSynTech Stock 81 by WOSynTech Chat. com/Flickr, CC by 20. You may not be familiar with NASCO Gulf, a leading insurance agent in Dubai, but the company stands out in its customer service code of conduct. See Figure 11. 13. The customer service mission is to provide customers with timely, responsive service with integrity, simplicity, and a passion for excellence while meeting or exceeding the customer's expectations. 48. The principles upon which NASCO serves its customers are trust, understanding, and resolve. The following is from its customer service fundamental principles. Trust. I work hard to gain and maintain customer trust in us. Understand. I understand our customers and their needs. Resolve. I solve our customers' problems, even if the solution is difficult. 49. NASCO lists its values on its website for all to see. The company outlines that its word is good, it is a bold partner, it works to earn loyalty, and it focuses on what matters. For more information about NASCO Gulf, visit the NASCO Gulf website. Link to learning. When it goes wrong. We have all heard the stories where companies poorly handled a customer issue. And you can easily find numerous videos where customers have recorded a company's poor customer service. Here are a few articles that share some of the more well-known stories. CBS News. Ring Central. Forbes.